Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where the Commander Clash crew, Richard, Karim, Seth, and me, Tomer, hello, we discuss Commander-related topics. So today, we are going to be talking about our favorite political cards in Commander. And the definition of political cards is going to vary. One definition I like using, for example, is cards that can potentially give your opponents resources. But another more broad definition you can also use for political cards would be just like cards that will require the input of the rest of the table to see how it resolves. And I think that's probably like the most safe version of defining politics, something that like basically gets the entire table involved with the card outside of like, you know, whether or not they want to interact with removal or block it or some such like that. So let's just kick things off with Seth. What is your first favorite political card?
Well, this might be a little bit cheating because it's really a mechanic more than an individual card. But I think the best political mechanic in all of Commander, by far, is the Monarch mechanic. So there's a bunch of different examples of this. One of them would be Court of Grace, which when it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, you make a 1/1 Spirit. If you're the Monarch, you get a 4/4 Angel instead. But the big deal about the Monarch is on your end step, you get to draw a card. And then if you take combat damage, the person who dealt you the combat damage gets the monarchy. So it just keeps moving around the table. So even though you're going to draw the card the first turn that you become the Monarch, you're going to end up giving it to your opponents most likely eventually. And it creates this really fun, I think, sub-game within a game of Commander where people do a lot to draw that extra card, incentivizes the table to attack. I just think it's an amazing multiplayer mechanic. So I love the Monarchy. It's one of my favorites. I would start every game of Commander with the Monarch in play if I could. I think that would be really fun.
I mean, I definitely agree with you. I love the Monarch mechanic. It's one of my favorite. I think it is my favorite multiplayer mechanic that I ever produced. It just kind of like makes the game move forward. It forces people to take risky actions. It forces them, or it highly incentivizes them to attack and spend resources and just be more aggressive and push the game forward. I love what it does to a game of Commander, but it's also just it's not like entirely backbreaking. Like if you're not the Monarch, you're not like, oh, I guess I lose the game. It's just like a powerful, it's a strong enough incentive for what it needs to do. And what it does is fantastic.
I agree with you guys. I love it when someone plays a Monarch card, but I actually never want to play one. Like, there's not that many good ones, right? Like, I mean, like Marchesa, you got to actually play like a Marchesa deck, right? And like, there's no kind of generic, like, I don't know, like a Swords to Plowshares or something that with Monarch. So I think the closest one is Throne of the High City or whatever, the land that just gives you the monarchy, but that's like super slow and a contested land slot. So like what are like the good generic cards to throw in your deck if you want a Monarch emblem?
So I think number one for me, and you do have to deal with color considerations, but I think Palace Jailer is just like a generically good removal spell that you can play in basically any white deck, and you're probably going to get value out of it. Just 4 mana exiles a creature until you are not the Monarch, so it is temporary removal, but it is good removal, and we got a lot more support with the latest Commander Legends. The whole cycle of courts are actually pretty good. They all do something even if you're not the Monarch, but then if you are the Monarch, they kind of get like super powered. So I feel like we're getting more and more generically good ways really throughout all the colors that you can put into your deck and get value of. We have some that really want you to be the Monarch, like Jared, one of the new commanders that like really rewards you for being the Monarch. But there's a lot of the Monarch cards that don't really require you to be the Monarch to get value out of them. They just get way better if you do happen to be the Monarch. Plus it like adds this fun element to the game. So I think we're getting more and more good Monarch support, honestly.
Yeah, I think the court cycle is one of their best. I really like Court of Grace. I think that's one of the strongest, but also Court of Ire, just like repeatedly either shocking small utility creatures for 2 or blowing something up for 7 pretty much kills anything. Other cards that I've enjoyed with the Monarchy that I've played and I like playing, Custodial Lich is when you become the Monarch. You become the Monarch when it enters the battlefield, and when you become the Monarch, target player sacrifices a creature, which is a nice little 2-for-1 for 5 mana. And Dawnglade Regent As long as you're the Monarch, permanents you control have hexproof. It's an expensive one, but it's still pretty good. Emberwild Captain. That is one that I've gotten some good value out of. You become the Monarch, and then also when your opponents are attacking you while you're the Monarch, it deals damage to the player equal to the number of cards in their hand. So they actually have to start thinking about, how much do they want this monarchy back? So that one can do a lot of good damage in like a burn deck, for example. So some of them are kind of janky, and there's not a lot. For my quick Scryfall search, there's only 32 cards, but I feel like this is something that they can keep opening up and adding to, and I like it a whole bunch.
Am I the only one that likes Court of Cunning? Or like, or the mill one? I think the mill one is hilariously fun. Like, I mean,
the courts get you killed on the spot. That's the problem. Like, when you have the Monarch, someone wants to kill you already, right? They want to take the crown, but when you put a court there, they're like, oh, we really need to kill you, right? Because the courts are so powerful that I feel they're a combo piece. Like, if you just play it casually, you're just going to die on the spot. So you need to actually combo with it or do something.
I feel like Court of Cunning, I think Court of Cunning's good if you're a mill deck, but I think that just like randomly milling opponents, if you're not a mill deck, is a lot of times a negative in Commander, because there's just so many graveyard shenanigans that I really don't want to just incidentally mill people unless my plan is to mill you out of the game.
I mean, definitely. If my plan is like on a just a basic general sense, then Court of Grace is probably the best one, and I also love those. So. I mean, I don't really like the Dawnglade one, but it is powerful, right? Like, it is very powerful. So, I don't know. I think there's a lot of good Monarch stuff. So, and it adds a fun mini game to the game.
This is all hypothetical because I've never seen you guys play any of these cards aside from the Monarch Commanders. But let me drop my pick, which I back up every week. Okay, it's Coveted Jewel. 6 mana rock, right? Tap to add 3 mana of any color. It enters untapped. When it enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards. And when one or more creatures an opponent controls attacks you and aren't blocked, that player draws 3 cards and gains control of Coveted Jewel. Untap it. Most underrated card. I put in literally every deck because I always play creature decks. It draws you cards, and then if you get hit, the next person gets to draw cards, and it's basically the Monarch on steroids, right? You get 3 cards instantly, you get 3 mana, and there are shenanigans you can do. Like, the Monarch is an emblem. You can't take it back really without an actual attack or a card that specifically does that. But Coveted Jewel, you can blink. You've seen me blink with Aminatu. You can Flicker Wisp it. You can do a lot of things. You can let Tomer take it and then die instantly. So this is Monarch on steroids, but you can put it in any deck as long as you're playing a lot of creatures, right? If you play a lot of creatures, most likely people won't be able to attack through you, and you can give favors, right? You can choose not to block to give someone cards if they really want, right? Or the mana needed to, let's say, undo inversion, right? There are things you can do to do work around this. So I actually really like this card, and it is severely underplayed, and I played in all of my decks, all of my decks.
I gotta ask you, Richard. You said all your decks. I feel like most of the time when we see you play, you got some sort of shenanigan. You got a way to sack it, a way to blink it. Even if you don't have any shenanigans, do you still like it? In a vacuum, okay.
Like birds. I put in birds, right? There's no shenanigans there. There's no artifact synergy. There's no blinking synergy. Any tribal deck, I'll stick in there. Basically, if I'm playing creatures, if I'm playing Spellslinger, then it's probably not going in there. But if I'm playing creatures, it's going in.
How good is it in a table without both me and Seth literally killing each other over it?
Everyone wants the cards. The worst case scenario is you draw 3, right?
Yeah.
And then your opponent takes it from you. They draw 3, get 3 mana, but then they'll get hit, right? And it goes around. It's just a supercharged Howling Mine, a supercharged group hug card.
It's a supercharged Monarch.
Yeah. In the best case, you keep it. Right? And no one can take it from you, right? And it's super high value. So in the most worst case, I don't even think it's that bad, right? It's just you give everyone mana, you give everyone cards, group hug. Leave me alone.
And you do benefit from it first. Like, you're the one that gets it the first turn, so you are getting that upside out of it. You've definitely sold me on it. It's a card that I would have never really considered playing, even though I love the Monarch. But seeing you play it week after week, it's been really impressive in a lot of games.
It's been better. It's been net positive more than it's been net negative. How about that? Right? Like, sometimes it really like destroys me, but like that's more rare, right?
So
I feel like
is
it's
it
been
better?
net positive because you've been blinking it a lot, though.
Because Krim can't attack me with his no creatures, so it's great. You got control players at the table; they can't touch the jewel.
Without me even attacking, I feel like like Seth had mentioned, you're constantly blinking it.
It's so funny though. This is a card that, like, when it came out, I said I'd only run it in 2 decks. I'd run it in a blink deck, and I'd run it in artifact decks that can reliably sacrifice it, like decks that run Goblin Welder and Goblin Engineer and the Ready and stuff like that. Like, basically any red artifact deck is going to be like super good with it, because you can just like, play it and then you can sacrifice it and then you can return it back from the graveyard and sacrifice it again. But like, yeah, the more Richard keeps getting us with it, the more I'm like, well, I guess if I have a bunch of creatures that attack, I guess it's good. I don't know. Like, it doesn't. I want to say it's not good. I want to say it's overrated and it's gonna backfire. But like, in our play group, he keeps playing it and he keeps getting value out of it. And yeah, it could bite you sometimes, and it does bite. I think it bit Richard like one game, but like then there's other games where I'm gonna have a card popping up, bing, where like me and Seth literally killed each other. over the stupid Coveted jewel, and I don't like it because of how much I got by it.
You got. I'll attack anyone for the Monarch. I will. You don't even want to know what I would do for a draw 3 Monarch. Like, I will go all out. We saw that in that game. Like, I emptied my hand and like tutored up multiple removals.
You tutored for it. You could have tutored up card draw, but you're like, no, I'm gonna tutor up like one thing to 2-for-1 myself to get it.
And then I didn't even get it in the end. I don't think, if I remember correctly.
And then we died.
No, you basically both died, and I drew 6.
I do have
That's
to say,
good
Richard,
value.
I'm shocked your number 1 card was not Dousing Dagger. I gotta say, because
that's not political. Okay, I guess you have to give the plans to someone.
Plans.
You totally could have gotten away with it, but you didn't. Respect. All right, we'll move on to my pick, which is definitely my absolute favorite political card that I run in every single red deck. It's Curse of Opulence. This is a 1-mana red aura curse that you attach to a player. So you enchant a player, and then every single time you or an opponent attacks the cursed player, whoever attacks gets a gold token. And you, the owner of the aura, always get a gold token as well. So if you attack the cursed person, you get a gold token. And when an opponent attacks the cursed person, they get a gold token and you get a gold token. This is a 1-drop mana. It's like basically a ramp card in red. It has artifact support synergies as well, because the gold is an artifact. You sacrifice, you add 1 mana to it. So if there's anything that triggers of artifacts, you can sacrifice it to like a Goblin Welder or whatever to get back your Coveted jewel from the graveyard or something like that. But like, I run it in literally every single red deck. It's getting a little bit kind of expensive these days because it sorely needs a reprint. Holy moly, it's almost $13 right now. But I've been an advocate of it since day one. I run in literally every single red deck I can, and I've never been disappointed. It's very good.
It always surprises me that people really will choose who they attack based on getting a single treasure token, and you're even giving the person who has the curse a treasure token. When I first read Curse of Opulence, I was like, oh, that's not enough. That's not who's gonna attack to get a single Lotus Petal. And they got to give someone a Lotus Petal, but it definitely is like everyone wants to get that. Everyone wants to get that treasure token.
It takes so much extra damage.
It really does. It's like kind of absurd how far people go for that.
Which is why that new red curse is going to be sweet.
Yeah, the new red curse is also very much in line of this. But this one always benefits you, the owner of it, as well. Like,
yeah.
Even if an opponent attacks for it. And that's like the greatest thing is like, I'll have a Curse of an Opulence, and I know that person wants, like the mutual enemy wants to attack me, but they want that gold token, and they only have one creature, so I guess they're attacking the cursed person. The poor cursed person is like losing like 20 extra life just because they're cursed.
All right, here's my hot take 10 minutes into the podcast.
Okay.
Curses are terrible for Commander. I actually hate them. So Tomer's right. This card is insanely strong. This is like a Soul Ring, right? It's like Teferi's Protection. It's like one of those like S+++ tier cards, but there is no politics here, right? You essentially slap it on a person, that person dies. There's no negotiating. There's nothing. It's like all of the curses do this, right? Including like the newest curses where people just like literally lose the game, right? Like it just makes one person get destroyed by the rest of the table. And that is not net fun, in my opinion. And
what?
I don't know, right?
Like it's out of just the 4 people at the table. What do you mean?
It's so oppressive, right? It's just it ends the game for one person. So I really dislike these kind of effects. And essentially all curses do this, right? And the better the incentive, the worse it is for that person. So anything about drawing cards, anything about getting mana, that person's just gonna get destroyed, right? And if they're kept around, it's because they're a blood bag, right? Like you want to keep them around and keep the resources running. So I dislike this card. I think it's a good way to ruin someone's experience, right? Like just throw a Curse of Opulence on them and like enjoy your game of Commander, friend, right?
I didn't know that we should have added this into the Salt podcast. I didn't know Richard was that salty.
I'm very salty about curses now. I've changed my opinion on those.
Somebody's got to die. This just expedites it. Look.
Not a 3v1 death, though. That's just like cruel.
Well, if you just have blockers, Richard, nobody can attack you.
Yeah, just have
blockers.
You wouldn't curse that person. You would curse the guy with no blockers, right?
That's true.
Fair.
I mean, is Curse of Opulence really that bad, though? Like, I feel like the new curses are especially egregious. Like, Curse of Opulence, you only got to attack them with a creature. The new curses really incentivize you to just, like, murder the person that they're on, like swing your entire team, and it gives them evasion. Like, I feel like Wizards has maybe went a little bit too far, but I don't find, like, Curse of Opulence to be... I don't know. Like, people live for a long time with a Curse of Opulence on them. When Curse of Hospitality, like, you're going to die in 2 turn cycles or something. Like, you're going to immediately just be dead.
Yeah. I mean, the newer ones are definitely a lot more egregious than Curse of Opulence, but Curse of Opulence is so good.
It is an interesting perspective that I never considered before, that the person who is getting cursed is kind of getting completely dunked on.
I mean, it's a curse. It's not a curse. It's not friendship, right? It's not a curse of friendship.
But
it's like it's got to be misery.
It just Curse of Opulence is so mana efficient, and I just think of it as basically a mana rock in my red decks. I'm not actually thinking about the victim's perspective on that one. And now that I'm starting to think about it, I'm like, yeah, that could be kind of mean. But also, I'm still going to run in every single red deck. I'm sorry.
You're right. It is mean.
This is CDH. I thought this is a social game. What are we doing? Are we winning or are we having fun? Come on.
You can. I mean, come on. You gotta throw some punches somewhere along the way. Curses just help expedite it. Also, It's not even true that like people always get punched by having the curse. I literally one episode of Commander Clash. I forgot who it was. I think Seth had a curse, but Tomer and I still attacked each other.
I also like this now also as being very vindictive, because like, we don't hold grudges, but sometimes we do, and we actually really do. So like Richard's like, hey, Richard, remember that last time you just completely dunked on me with a Coveted Jewel? Well, guess what, buddy? Curse of Opulence, turn 1. Let's go.
What do you mean you randomly rolled a d6 and it just landed on Richard?
Meeny, miny, Richard. Take it. All right, moving on. Krim, what do you got for us for a political card?
So, like Richard had mentioned, right? The curse thing, it doesn't there's no real politicking, right? But let's talk about some sweet politics here, okay? You get my favorite card, probably my number 1 card, and I think more effects like this should exist in Commander, at least ones that where like tables can like interact with it, and it is Lethal Vapors. Now, this may not seem like a political card, but the thing here is the whole table does have to work together, talk amongst themselves. I mean, I don't have to do anything, but that's fine. But the thing here, like the person that plays it is just going to be like, okay, well, you know what? It's up to you three now to figure out how you want to resolve this. And I think that actually, like, whether or not the effect of Lethal Vapors needs to be completely reprinted every time, I do think that, like, the idea that a card where the entire table can just keep playing and, like working around it, playing like a PvE deck builder kind of game, I think that is fun. I think that is great. I mean, the best part is I also don't have to do anything. I just get to watch everyone else try to figure it out.
You monster.
I've never thought of Lethal Vapors as a political card, but I kind of see where you're going with that. It does force the table, well, hopefully, to work together to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Huh. You need to choose someone to skip the turn, and you're negotiating what they get for it, which is like, we won't kill you. And then ironically, this is like cursing yourself, because whoever plays this, like, everyone's gonna try to kill them, and you've just made 3 enemies who will band together. But I mean, that's only at our table, right? Because you could conceive of, like, say 2 control decks or something, or 2 combo decks at a table where no one has creatures, and you're using it to oppress the creature decks, right? And so you're working together to keep the Lethal Vapors on the battlefield, right?
It's a political card, one way or the other, right?
It is. The control decks are banding together, and then the poor creature deck is like, I guess I lose a turn. Like,
I don't know if I ever remember us having a conversation about, like, who's gonna skip their turn and the other people protecting him. I feel like we just complain about it and then, like, attack Crim when we can until someone draws a disenchant or something.
You know what's funny,
that's
Seth?
how I remember those games going.
That's because you played it.
Wait, when did I play Lethal Vapors?
It was in your whatever the Rakdos deck was in the most recent week. Mogus. It was Mogus, and you played it. I mean, I love the card.
So good in Mogus, though, because it's indestructible. I like that.
As soon as you played it, I was happy, though. I was like, yo, that is a sweet card, even if it is totally ruining my creature game plan right now. So I did pitch the conversation. I was like, okay, who wants to skip their turn for this? Because if not, we're going to be in trouble.
How did it end? I don't actually remember. How did it leave the battlefield? Did I die?
Yeah, you just straight up
okay.
Spoilers. I'll link the game.
Like I said, it's just a curse on yourself. Everyone just kills you.
But it is funny, right? Like, and it does add politics to the game, and whether or not you like Lethal Vapors specifically, that's fine, as I had mentioned. But I do want also just more things where the table can interact. Like Nullhide Ferox is one of the ones that has that ability where you could pay 2 to remove the hexproof, or someone can. Right, so like I just think more things like that would be sweet.
Yeah. So yeah. I'll just like to also just disclaimer again. Comments don't pile up right now. We're talking about cards that specifically allow interaction built into the wording, right?
You can pile up. I can take it. Give me it. Give me that sodium. I love it.
Negative comments are still comments. Who's that algorithm, boys?
But right, like it is a politic card, right? It's not like this is not a political card.
Yeah.
I think this is technically more political than a curse, like an actual like curse of opulence, right? And I think that the idea that the table working around it makes it a lot of fun.
Right.
I don't know.
Confirmed. Standstill every deck.
Yeah, I don't know if fun is the word I'd use to describe it, but I also I don't think I've ever seen a person with Lethal Vapors actually win the game off it. It usually backfires. Like, it will get removed, and then everybody will remember the person who put Lethal Vapors on the battlefild, and they'll just attack relentlessly.
Oh yeah, 100%. But it is funny.
it's a lock piece, right? So
it is a lock piece.
So people don't. You either finish a job and lock everyone out, or you just die, right? You can't like half lock a table.
It has to be exiled for me to not attack the person anymore. Basically.
No, I'm attacking him in the rest of the game. I don't even care if it's exiled. Like, once you play it, like you deserve what's coming to you. You know
the person who ran it.
Hey, I would deserve it as well.
Seth, what do you got for us?
We have one of my favorite cards that the only reason I don't play this in every deck that I could play it in is I forget on occasion, but that is Fractured Identity, a 5-mana Azorius sorcery speed removal spell that exiles a non-land permanent and gives each player other than the player who controlled that permanent a token copy of that permanent. So it's removal, it also is kind of like a weird theft effect where you get a copy of it and you're being nice and giving copies to 2 other opponents as well. There are like weird janky combos that you can play with it, but really I think this card is just really sweet. It's a cool removal spell. It hits any non-land for 5 mana, which already isn't bad, and there is some, you know, risk to it because you're giving 2 other people copies of it, but you're also getting a copy of it. So I love cards like this. I think the best political cards are ones that benefit you the most, and this is one of those cards that you get to choose the target, so you should choose the best target for you, and you get to answer the best thing on the table while also maybe making friends with a couple of other people and making one person probably a little unhappy. But
I think this card is sweet, but I've never seen it used fairly. It's always like giving out Phage, Leveler.
Yeah, but that's part of the fun.
I mean, once again, like I very rarely, and I mean, I haven't seen Seth play it, so maybe that's the difference. But every time I've seen this, it is some kind of piece I do not want.
I just want to get you a Ball Drifter or whatever.
You're trying to remove something, but you're giving all your opponents that same thing you're trying to remove. So that cannot be the right play, right? You must be comboing with this, right?
I think it's like if you're trying to deal with the arch enemy, this is like one of the best ways to like immediately swing the momentum away from the arch enemy player. Like they have a dominant position. The table needs to gang up and beat that arch enemy. And one of the best ways is if you exile their best threats, and then you give everybody else that threat, and now you can use that to beat the person to death with it. It's like a really good way to turn the tables on someone. But also, there's no way you're running Fractured Identity in your deck without having like Phage, or I have it in my Zedger deck, and I have a combo with 9 limes. So you exile, you cast 9 lives. 9 lives has a lot of text that says when you leave the battlefield, you lose the game. So you Fractured Identity your own 9 lives, and you give everybody a copy of 9 lives. You lose the game trigger goes on the stack, and in response, you use an instant speed mass enchantment removal like Patrician Scorn, destroying all the token 9 lives. There to leave the battlefield, lose the game triggers go on the stack before yours, resolve first, and then you win the game. And I've never pulled it off, but it is the reason why Fractured Identity is in there. But sometimes I would cast it without the combo if I need to deal with a threat, send a message.
I feel like legit people just hold on to it. Even if there was a problematic permanent, most people just hold on to this and they just wait until they combo.
If there's a Rhystic study on the battlefield, and so,
this makes it worse.
Then you will add 3 Rhystic studies to the battlefield.
Then I'll be like, this is what you all get. I Fractured Identity, and now everybody but that person has the Rhystic study. And then everyone was like, oh, you want to pay for that? You want to pay 3? Huh? Do you? Oh, man. I've never done it, but like these are my happy dreams,
I would be offended if somebody just put Anissa Who Shakes the World on my board. Do not disgust me by putting that on my board. Kill this.
What do you mean? You always play green.
Yeah.
All right. My next card, Secret Rendezvous. 1 white, sorcery. You and target opponent each draw 3 cards. I believe this goes in every single white deck. Every single deck with white, unless you're paired with a strong card draw color, which is only blue and black, I think. Even green, you would play this. You draw 3 cards. 3 mana, draw 3 cards in white is incredible. And then you just give someone whose mana screwed 3 cards, right? You just like help someone at the table. You can give it to Seth, and he will be your lieutenant for the rest of the game
forever. Yeah,
right. The only downside is when you're down to like 1v1 and you top deck this, then this is horrendous. But before then, with at least 2 other players, you can always give it to another person and then team up on the remaining person. So to me, there's no downside to this. It's all upside. And if you cast it early enough, they discard as well if they haven't played enough cards. So yeah, every single white deck this is in. Even like 2-3 color decks, I put this in a lot. It's just 3 mana draw. It's like Painful Truths.
You can Notion Thief it.
Yeah, you can do that.
Well, if you're in white, you can Alms Collector it.
Oh, yes. Alms Collector.
Does that work? I think it works.
Yeah.
I feel like you're a little higher on it than I am. Like, I can see it in mono white, but 3 colors, even in green, that like I don't know. If you got the ability to draw cards, why do you want your opponent to draw cards? Is it really like currying that political favor really that powerful that it's better than just playing something else that can draw you cards that doesn't give it to your opponent?
Because there's always someone who's not a threat at the table. So you giving them more cards, like, doesn't like really matter. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, I guess
what you don't want to do is give the 3 cards to like the combo player who's about to pop off, right? You don't want to do that, right? But usually there's someone at the table who you can throw these to. Like someone, always give someone the plants, always give someone the 3 cards. Like there's always someone who's not in a good position that you can give cards to, and it's like irrelevant.
The one thing I dislike about it is it technically benefits your opponent more because like you're spending the card. I wish it was like, you draw 3 and your opponent draws 2 or something. Like you're spending 3 mana in your card, your opponent gets 3 cards. You're kind of only up 2 cards because you spent the card. So
this is a white card, Seth. Be grateful you drew more than 1 card. It'd be like you gain 2 life. Your opponent draws 6 cards. Like what?
Mark Rosewater is upset that it said you could only draw more than 1 card, and he fought tooth and nail against us one, Seth. All right. You should have only drawn 1 card, and your opponent draws 3. All right. That was the first draft.
Your opponent draws 3, you gain 2 life.
It's balanced.
But like if you need a wrath on the table, you're like, here, Seth, you're going next, right? Here, draw 3 cards into the wrath, right? Or whatever, right? There's lots of things you can do by giving cards out. And you can make friends forever, right? If I give Seth or Tormer cards, forever. I'm sure they'll do my bidding for at least a couple turns.
I mean, I don't hate this card, but yeah, I feel like you get the short end of the stick when you cast it a little bit. So I'm not high on it as Richard.
You're white. But what options do you have?
I don't know. It's to play or as an equipment, so you can actually draw cards a good way. I don't know. I don't run white decks that are not equipment or aura decks because I'm not a masochist.
I definitely buy it for mono white. The 2-3 color idea. I haven't gotten that far yet.
All right, I'll show you. Birds have to come back. I'll show you.
Yeah.
The birds are having a rendezvous. We're meeting up.
Yeah. You secret rendezvous.
And then in the color blue, I will show you the secret rendezvous.
Yeah, secret rendezvous, and then play a Tosk and be like, see, guys, secret rendezvous is so good.
It drew you into a turn 4 Toski. It smoothed your curve out. Wow. That's perfect.
Broken. All right, moving on. This is one of my favorite cycles of cards, but I'm going to choose just, one to talk about. Way back in the day, we got an offering cycle, so 1 for each color, but my favorite of the bunch has to be Volcanic Offering. This is a 5 mana red instant that says, destroy target non-basic land you don't control, and target non-basic land of an opponent's choice you don't control, and Volcanic Offering deals 7 damage to target creature you don't control, and 7 damage to target creature of an opponent's choice you don't control. So you get to choose a non-basic land and basically kill any creature because it deals 7 damage. So it kills pretty much all but the biggest creatures. So you get to kill 1 creature and you get to destroy 1 non-basic land at instant speed. And then you essentially get to double up on that because you get to choose an opponent and they also get to blow up a non-basic land and blow up a creature as long as neither of those targets are stuff that you own. So you're basically blowing up 2 non-basic lands and blowing up 2 threatening creatures for 5 mana at instant speed. I think this rate is pretty insane. It's also really easy to kind of coerce your opponents to choose stuff that would be mutually beneficial for both of you. So usually when I cast this card, I'm like, all right, I'm going to blow up this problematic lane, like this Cabal Coffers or something. And then how about you choose, this flipped Dowsing Dagger, and then we blow up the 2 creatures. So like I've always seen this card overperform, and it's kind of crazy that I don't see it more often, to be honest, because this card is like $2, so it's not like super expensive or anything. And red just typically doesn't really have amazing instant speed creature removal. So it does both, and it's blowing up lanes at the same time, so you can get rid of those flipped Dowsing Daggers, So I love it.
I feel specifically that card is. It's still pretty cool though. I do like it.
C14. It's only in 1% of Commander decks according to EDH. Like I feel this is a card we saw a lot like in the past, but we haven't seen as much anymore. And I don't know why. Like, has it been replaced by something? Is 5 mana removal too much? Is 7 mana or 7 damage not enough to kill creatures nowadays? Like,
it's 5 mana for a 4/1 though.
Yeah.
It's crazy. At instant speed.
I mean, I do think it's a solid card. I'm actually not sure. I don't know why we don't see it more. I do agree with Richard that we used to see it more often. I honestly kind of forgot that it existed. So that I don't know, if so many Commander products come out now, I wonder how many of these pretty good older cards just end up getting overshadowed at no fault of their own, just because the next cool thing came out in the next precon and that's what everyone's focused on. But I should probably play this card more often.
Let's play on new version.
This is like a Crim card too. It's an instant card. So like Crim plays draw go every single time. This is like a Crim card.
But it's 5 mana. He has to have 5 mana.
Yeah, but if he doesn't tap his mana for anything on his turn, he'll always have that mana up. And yeah.
Well, I mean, like literally land count. That's the only problem.
By turn 12, he'll have the 5 mana to cast.
Yes, finally. Finally.
Is like the rest of the offering cycle any good? This is the whole cycle, right?
So another one that I really like is Intellectual Offering. That's my second favorite one. It's the blue one. So also 5 mana instant. You and an opponent each draw 3 cards. And you and an opponent untap all non-land permanents you control. So what I like doing, basically it's like you draw 3 and you get to untap all your mana rocks is how you usually use it. Like if you're not in green, you just do that. And you can also use it like a secret rendezvous, like
Did
Richard
you just poo-poo on secret rendezvous?
Yes,
yes, more expensive
because
version?
This is a secret rendezvous that untaps all your mana rocks. All right, so you don't even have to pay mana for it. And it's a ritual sometimes, Richard. All right, this is a ritual. Okay, it makes mana.
So you can get enough of a discount to bring it back to 3 mana to.
But you also choose somebody who does. It doesn't matter if they untap all their stuff. Like green player, you can untap your, I don't know, your Oracle of Moldiah. Good for you. And then so like somebody draws 2 cards, you curry some favor. It's like it's what Secret Rendezvous wishes it was. All right,
I agree with you, but I think Secret Rendezvous is the upgraded version of Intellectual Offering at 3 mana. But yes, I agree with all your points, Tomer.
And yeah, you are kind of saying the same thing Richard said about Secret Rendezvous.
Man,
is it a combo piece? Is that why you're playing it? Like, is it some sort of like untap your stuff, storm off thing? I can buy that. I
draw cards and then immediately cast something else because you just untapped all your mana. I like it in Draw New because you also untap Draw New with it too.
Yeah. Well, if there's one thing I know about Drownu is it never
seen you
actually
cast
is on the battlefield. So
you all hated me out, all right? Drownu will have his day in the sun. We're gonna have a revenge week, and I'm gonna come back, and you'll all see how good Drownu plus Intellectual Offering is. Okay, all right.
I legit don't think I've ever seen you cast.
You know what? Fine. My genius is wasted in this group. Let me know in the comment section below why Intellectual Offering is so good. If you say anything otherwise, I will delete it. All right, bye. Next up, we'll talk about Bitter Feud Crim.
Okay, wait, hold on, Mike. What? Okay, fine.
Wait, no, Crown of Doom. Sorry. Oh my goodness.
So yeah, like I think one of my favorite cards is Crown of Doom. Another sort of like politicking card in that you pretty much assess who's the threat at the table, and then that way you just move the crown over to them, and then everybody beats them up. So, yep, that's simply put. Like I mean, I love this card in an aggro deck. Like in my humans deck or anything, like, oh, well, who needs to die? You let me know. All right, cool. Move the crown over there, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I do find a lot of joy in this card.
It is brutal. I've definitely died to it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have also died to Crown of Doom. Like, it is a very scary card that offers a lot of pumping for sure.
I think it was because of this card also the Commander Clasher Tomer died the fastest he's ever died. Or something. Like I forgot. But it was like it's such I don't know. I like this card. I like anything that will allow the table to benefit, right? Like cuz the table does benefit when they attack this person.
I agree. It's a very good card. It also falls under my curse train of thought, where the game just ends for one person.
Well, the person can give it away too, right?
You give it away.
Only during your turn, though.
Yeah,
so
you have to survive your
just
turn
die
and then you give it away.
before you
Yeah,
get
maybe
to
it's
it.
better than
Yeah.
a curse. You just need to have enough blockers to not die.
It's a
and then
temporary curse.
Okay, you've sold me. Okay.
Yeah, it's a feel good curse. It's really good for I guess go wide decks. Like you run in and go wide deck like Adeline or something, you get a ton of value out of it. And then that person who you gave the crown to, they have to now give it away. Then they have to spend mana to do that too, so they live. And then it's like, all right, that's extra value for me because I kind of was a little bit of mana denial as well. So that's kind of cool. I like it. All right, fine. Moving on, Seth, what do you got for us next for card number 3?
Next up, we have one of the cooler equipments Wizards has made in a long time, Assault Suit. Assault Suit, 4-mana equipment, makes it so the equipped creature gets +2/+2 haste, and it can't attack you or planeswalkers you control, and it can't be sacrificed. And at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you can give that player the creature, essentially, and untap it. So you can put this on one of your creatures, and then just send that creature around the table to let your opponents smack each other with it throughout the game. I think it's just a really cool design. You can play it with like Voltron-y commanders or whatever, but I think it's just like a really fun card. It's kind of like the Monarch equipment, but it deals a lot more damage and hurts a lot more rather than just letting people draw cards.
I like this card.
I think
I'm the only one that plays it at the table.
Yeah.
But then you guys got smart and like stopped attacking with the creatures. So like I'm gonna stop playing this card now because they don't attack with my 2020 double strike lifelink or whatever, So I'm like, this is kind of useless.
Why aren't you killing people for me?
Yeah, so I don't play it as much, but I really do like the card.
So my fondest memory the scariest memory, nightmare memory, I guess, of Assault Suit was Chaos Week, where you equipped Ruhan of the Fomori with Assault Suit, and Ruhan must attack every single time, and the opponent is chosen at random. But Assault Suit made sure that you could never be attacked by your own commander. So you're just passing by Ruhan, and he's like 7 power or whatever, just to start. So he's smacking like really hard. And with a little bit of buffs, he's starting to two-shot people. And he's just going around the table, and he's just like, I remember every single, there was a turn cycle, and I was like, if I get chosen at random, one more time, I'm dead.
Yeah.
And it's one turn cycle. You could just die an entire turn cycle. It's just
Russian roulette.
Just smacking
it's the way Commander's meant to be played.
I love that.
Damage.
I legitimately love it. That game was so much fun. Also, just
I also have a 5-color deck, Corona the False God, that really benefits from Assault Suit. Corona says it's like a proto Assault Suit, where you at the beginning of each person's upkeep or each person's turn, they get control of Corona, and Corona can immediately has haste, can immediately attack like a 5/5, and has an anthem effect that you just pump up your team. But Corona doesn't have any clause that says you can't attack the owner. So if you just give a Corona away without having any backup plan, your opponents are just going to be like, oh, so we're all going to attack Tomer with his own commander and kill him with him, right? And then you just die. So you equip Assault Suit onto Corona first. Corona can no longer attack the owner, and you also can't get a Corona just randomly sacrificed too, which is a big issue with these Voltron-y plans. Is if you give it to a sacrifice player and he's like, oh sweet, that's 1 mana off Phyrexian Altar, not as good. So yeah, I like the card a lot. I just don't have a lot of decks that I actually play it in, but any Voltron deck is kind of pretty sweet if you can force combat. Yeah.
All right, next card for me is Victory Chimes, 3 mana value rock. Untap Victory Chimes during each other player's untap step. Tap it. A player of your choice adds colorless. So it's a mana rock where you can target other people. It untaps every turn. The reason we don't play it as much is because it's super annoying on Moto. There's a trigger all the time. It's 2 clicks to add mana. But I think it's super useful. I think it's a legit reason to run a 3 mana value rock. We had the tier list where we chose all the good ones. I don't think this one made it on. But the flexibility of giving your opponent mana, how many games have we been 1 mana off for Wrath, right? You can do that. If you can work at instant speed, this just gives you like free mana, right? This is better than Worn Power Stone, right? It's giving you extra mana every turn. So I really like this card. It should be played. I think this should be like the default rock. Like Worn Power Stone and Victory Chimes and Skyclave Relic. Like those are the 3 you should start with and then cut or add. But I think ramping your opponent is super underrated. Like, off by 1 for Ondu inversion. Here you go, right? Or you need, you need that
Victory Chimes,
right? You stifle Seth's Mana Tithe forever, right? You can never Mana Tithe you ever again, right? So yeah, there's a lot of uses for this card.
I feel like this card leads to a lot of begging because everyone knows you could be giving them mana during your turn because there's no downside. So even like when you do need that 1 more mana for the Wrath to stabilize is awesome. But I feel like every turn, like you're going to have people asking you to give them the mana because why wouldn't you? And if you say no, you're kind of a jerk because you're not doing anything with it. So.
I see.
That's even better.
Crim's gonna start playing it now just to say no.
Nope. Nope. And
nope, not this turn. Sorry.
Anyway, moving on to another card that I like even more, though. This is a new one that
I love
none of us have been able to play because it's not available online. Hooray!
Yes.
This is Druid of Purification. It's a 4-mana green human druid creature, 2/3. And when it enters the battlefield, starting with you, each player may choose an artifact or enchantment you don't control. Destroy each permanent chosen this way. You can see there's a little bit of a trend with the political cards that I like, where your opponents get to chip in on stuff to blow up mutually threatening targets, but as long as those mutually threatening targets aren't your own. So this is kind of like a reclamation sage on steroids. Instead of just blowing, like you're gonna blow at least 1 artifact or enchantment with this card, right? And it's only 1 more mana than a Rec Sage. So at minimum, it's a Rec Sage. At maximum, though, you can be blowing up like 3, 4? You can blow up 4 artifacts or enchantments with this. Isn't that insane?
Yeah, I love
crazy.
this card. This was actually, so I didn't want to, I had this on my list, but I noticed that you had it afterwards, so I took it off. And that's right, a green card made it onto my list. That's how good, I think this card is so much fun because of the exact things that Tomer had mentioned.
It kind of blows my mind this card doesn't see more play. If you look on EDH Rec, this shows up in like 3% of decks, and Reclamation Sage is in 21% of decks. And discounting any like tribal synergies, isn't this just better? Like, isn't this more powerful than Reclamation Sage?
Yeah.
It's $7 though, and it's kind of new, and it's never shown. It showed up in 1 precon. I think that's the main problem with it. It's like I think Rec Sage has shown up in other precons, and it's also cheap. But Druid of Purification is like new. It's just
people just don't know this exists, is my guess.
There's just too many cards these days. There's just
we
too many
forget,
cards.
Right?
Yeah. It's like this one of the 5,000 new cards they printed in the past year. It literally came out this year. Did you know that? It came out this year.
I thought it came out last year.
I think it was Forgotten Realms, right? I think it was
Forgotten Realms was one of the precons, I think. Or was it set boosters? Or was it collective boosters? I don't know.
Then it was fairly recent. Well, yeah. I mean, I love the card, though. I think, play it more. I mean, I guess unless it's the budget thing, then never mind.
Bring it on MTGO. How about that?
It's too complicated.
Too complicated.
Voting.
Technology just isn't there
Voting
yet.
never works on Voto.
All right, whatever. Moving on. Krim, what do you got for us?
So, I've got a Bitter Feud. I also love this card because I think that this is just one of those... I've played like Dictate of whatever the gods or whatever, the one where it doubles the damage.
What does the card do? What does the card do?
So Bitter Feud is a 4. It's 4 and a red. It's an enchantment. As Bitter Feud enters the battlefield, choose 2 players. If a source controlled by one of the chosen players would deal damage to the other chosen player, or a permanent that player controls, that source deals double that damage to that player or permanent. So once again, it's like now make them kiss meme, but instead now make them fight, right? And like so, This is exactly the type of stuff where it's easily avoidable, right? But sometimes people get into, like, I can imagine there's groups where, you know, somebody goes tunnel vision, they see one thing, you know, I see Simic, Tomer sees Ristic Study, you know what I mean? And so, like, somebody just puts that on us or somewhere else, and then all of a sudden it could shift the focus, or it could make the focus even worse. But the thing here is, it's just a lot of fun to have these kind of enchantments. As you could tell, I've got a lot of things that are just pretty much either enchantments or artifacts that kind of make each other either everybody work together or fight each other. And those are like some of my favorite things in Commander.
I feel like this is another card that's going to make those two players attack you, probably, to get it off of them.
100%. Like everything I play
first, then you do this.
I don't know. I mean, I legit just like casting these willy-nilly into the sun. Why? Because I can. I think like the last time I played my Mogus deck or anything like that, or my Xantia deck, the one thing everybody knows is I often say I don't plan on living past turn 5, and that's because I play just a bunch of things like these.
Well, you put lethal vapors on the battlefield, then you bitter feud, and it's like, what? You're gonna attack me with 4 creatures? They all die.
It's a statement. It's letting them know. It's letting them know you're missing out on this double damage.
I really like this card. I think it's a fixed curse, right? Like, it's downside on somebody, but they have a fighting chance, right? Because it's not a 3v1, it's a 1v1, right? And you're not even forcing that 1v1. You can just 2v1 the person that cast this, right? But it's a 1v1 where you can fight back. So I actually really like this card. But I think, like Seth said, I think people don't play this because it probably just gets you killed. Like,
I don't think it's good enough. I don't know.
There's very easy,
right? It's entertaining.
It is 100% entertainment, like, right? Like, I love this card as entertainment, but there's definitely ways that you could protect yourself from getting attacked, like you had mentioned.
Like, you can choose yourself, though, and, like, murder the other person before the game starts.
Immediately, yeah.
Right? Like, you cast this, and you just hit them, and they die, and you're like, I guess
Square up, let's go.
Right?
I just don't see why I would run, like, all right, I look at this, and it looks like a very bad version of, like, Gisela, where, like, everybody deals double damage to all your opponents, but you take half damage.
Gisela's a creature. I don't like creatures unless they're rogues. So
I don't know.
Which are essentially mill spells on a stick. So
I don't know why. I don't really know why I would run this one either, but I can see why Krim would like it. It's just kind of like a funny, make things happen, almost like pseudo trolley style card. It does seem like a Krim card to me.
Yeah, it's not like
good.
If
you had a creature that must attack every turn or something, like that can't attack you, and then you feud them up, like Assault Suit, stuff like that, right? Like,
I think like maybe
I kind of want to build a deck around Bitter Feud. I think it's hilarious.
I think it would be pretty darn good in Cardor, because Cardor, when it enters the battlefield, it effectively goads all your opponent's creatures. They have to attack somebody, and they can't attack you for that turn cycle.
Yeah.
So if you bitter feud with Cardor, then you're essentially speeding up the process of which everybody kills themselves.
I mean, if you're putting it on yourself, though, aren't there just better options? Like, you for one more mana, like,
that's the backup
Emancipation,
option.
that's triple damage, everyone.
That's the backup plan, and plus you play that too, right? You do all of that.
Yeah, Cardor says you have to attack somebody else, and bitter feud you just curse 2 people, right?
Yep. Right. Yep.
I mean, it'd be hilarious. Like you like Tober starts bickering with you. You're like, all right, that's it, friend. It's a bitter feud between me and you. You cast it, you throw down the gauntlet.
I should every
and
time
then you murder each other. It's hilarious.
Every time Krim is on blue, and I know he has Ristic Study, I should run bitter feud. This is preparation. Like, all right, Seth, you're not gonna pay the 1. Bitter feud.
Bitter feud.
It's like it's the strongest assertion of dominance, where you bitter feud yourself with an opponent. You know, it's like you enter the gladiator arena, you remove all your armor, you're like, let's go, right?
It's basically like an abacus. It's the magic version of an abacus.
This is what Coveted Jewel does to us.
Playability versus the message sent. All right, the message sent here is there. All right, this is a prime example of those kind of cards.
All right, moving on. Seth, what do you got for us for card number 4?
Ooh, our next card is Tempt with Discovery. We haven't really talked about the Tempt cycle at all. There's a whole cycle of these cards, but Tempt with Discovery, 4-mana green card. It has Tempting Offer. You get to search your library for a land card, not a basic land card, any land card, and put it onto the battlefield. Then each opponent gets to, if they want to, search for a land card and put it into play. And for each opponent that does search, you get to search again and put another land into play. So the floor is 4 mana, get any land you want from your deck. The ceiling is, if each of your opponent's tutor, you're going to get up to 4 non-basics altogether for that 4 mana. And these are the kind of political cards I love the most, because you always benefit the most. If no one chooses to get a land, you got a land, no one else got any. If one person chooses, you get 2 lands, they get 1. So no matter how the math breaks down, you're always going to benefit more, but it's still benefiting your opponents. And my experience with this card has been that people usually tutor up the land. So you're often getting your Urborg / Cabal coffers, or getting your Field of the Dead and whatever, your Thespian Stage and your Vesuva and your Dark Depths or whatever. Like, people are always going to take the Tempting Offer. It's just too tempting to pass up. So yeah, I think this card's actually really, really strong, and I should probably play it more. And it's also newly cheap. It was pretty expensive at one point, but they've reprinted it a couple times, so now it's down like to under $2 again. So
at one point this was like a $15 card, I think, right?
Yeah, it was pretty expensive before they reprinted it. Yeah.
I kind of forgot about this card because it was so expensive for so long. But like, I totally agree with you. Like, if you're at a table where you cast a spell and consistently nobody takes you up on the offer, 4 mana, put any card into from your library to the battlefield, it's not great. Like, I probably wouldn't run it in that point. But in my personal playgroups, in my personal experience, everybody takes you up on the offer. Like, the first person who takes up the offer, then everybody's like, well, if he's taking up the offer, then I'm going to take up the offer. And then bada bing, bada boom, you basically ramped yourself for any types of lands. So it's going to be your Field of the Dead, plus, you're like Maze of Ith, plus, I don't know, your Temple of the False God, whatever. It's all good. It's all gravy. You got a bunch of utility lanes, and it's super fun. If people are not, if it really meta dependent, but in the metas that I've been participating in, especially on Commander Clash, people always take it. And it's like silly how good it is.
And really, you only need 2 lands for it to be worth it. When you consider that 4 mana to get 2 basic lands is still a pretty staple-y effect at this point in Commander, even though we've talked about it not being as good as it used to be. But like, Explosive Vegetation is still a card a lot of decks play. If you get 2 non-basics with this, that is still like a really powerful effect. Like, that's an above-the-curve card, and then when you do get all 4, it's just like absurd, and you probably game-winning, because each of your opponents is only getting 1. Like, they're only getting 1. You get so much more benefit out of it.
This is Ristic Study. Like, you all know what the correct play is, and the correct play is let them pay 4 mana to ramp 1. But somebody's gonna get greedy, and then everyone else needs to get greedy, and then somehow you're like, why did you let this guy pay 4 mana, ramp 4, like 4 like Field of Deads, right? Like Field of Dead, fetch land, Vesuva, whatever.
Field of Dead, Vesuva, Thespian Stage.
Like you're like, oh, this happened. But yeah, I think we play this, right? I think we've been building our deck wrongs, right? We should be playing this over Ranger's Path and Skyshroud Claim, right? I think this should be the first 4 mana ramp you put in your deck, right? Maybe
until we learn to play better.
It'll never happen. It'll never. There's no learning. We all know. We just won't do it.
I'm always getting the land, Tomer.
I'm always getting the land. What do you mean? There's also there was a funny rebuttal that I saw every once in a while, and I'm sure somebody was tip-tapping away to leave this comment. Maybe they already did. Maybe it's too late, and maybe they're gonna sheepishly delete it. But like, people will say, "Oh yeah." So what happens is, you tutor up your land, then everybody tutors up a strip mine. Got him. So everybody strip mines the extra lands you got. But then it's like, I got to tutor up 4 lands. You got to destroy 3 of them. And then they're in the graveyard where I can easily recur it. This is amazing. Thank you.
If you're going to strip mine, you might as well have not cast,
you might as well
not take the offer, right? Because
it's like the most common rebuttal to this card. I see it on the internet all the time. It's like, oh, well, I'll strip mine him. Ha ha ha, got him. It's like, no, you didn't get us. You went dead lands and you put free resources in my graveyard. Thank you. I appreciate it. Anyway.
I never cash in on this unless everyone else does. Because at this point, but usually I'm like, no, we're not going to take this.
Yeah, but if I'm going to and Seth's going to,
then you're taking it too.
Yeah, I've got. Yeah.
You don't want to be behind. You don't want to be the last one.
Yeah, like realistically, I just hope nobody takes it, because then you really do just make it so they paid 4 mana, took their turn off, and did nothing.
This card is so much more powerful now that Field of Dead is a card.
Yeah, now that we have good lands to tutor up for any deck, like
then maybe everyone will not tutor a land. Right?
I think would 4 mana tutor 1 land be worth? I think it might actually be worth it. Like just if you get no extra, because it's any land, right? Like people play crop rotation. You're 2 for 1ing yourself to get the land you want, right? So like,
what's the one that gets 2? There's Our Promise, I think.
Yeah, Our Promise is 5 mana.
Yeah, it's 5
and
mana.
It gets 2 lands guaranteed.
Yeah.
So 4 mana get 1. It's like not great, but like I mean, now that as we get more and more good lands, like this just keeps going up.
But what if it's get a land and a zombie token? Huh? What if it's like get a land and fix your mana forever, get a world tree, right? Like, the lands are so powerful nowadays. I think that rate is like almost worth it, right? And I'm sure Wizards will keep printing ridiculous lands.
Yeah.
Plus, if you get a Temple of the False Gods or like an Ancient Tomb, that's like basically getting 2 lands, right?
Also, as we're talking about that too, Pier's Whim would be another one that is kind of similar and also does it. It's a 4 mana. For each player choose friend or foe, each friend searches for a land card, inputs on the battlefield tapped, and then each foe sacrifices an artifact or enchantment. So if you're just getting 1 land, that might actually be even slightly better to get your Cabal Coffers or your Field of the Dead or whatever.
Yeah, because you're still stronger as this podcast else, right?
Goes on. You didn't even know we had all these options.
Yeah, you're gonna see a lot of these cards hopefully show up in Commander Clash soon, because I'm like, oh man, I keep forgetting about these cards. But another card that I think we should play more often too, Richard. Hit us with the next big
the
scoop.
Tom special Skullwinder. 2 in a green. It's a 1/3 death touch. When it enters the battlefield, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Then choose an opponent. That person does the same thing. So I think strictly better than Ewit. I know Seth debates me on this. It's a 1/3 death touch. It is actually a serviceable body that blocks. You get to Ewit something, and your opponent gets to Ewit something, which I think is to your benefit like 99% of the time. So I basically see no downside to giving your opponent things if you haven't seen a thing here, right? I think you just play it over Ewit, right? And you know the new 4 mana Ewit is a possibility because it's a 2 for 1, but this thing has Death Touch, which is quite relevant. It'll stop you from dying. You can block.
But you play it, and then they just get a Doomblade and kill it, and
well, you don't give it to the person who's going to Doomblade your
Commander All-Star Doomblade.
I also imagine that like Doomblade-esque cards, they're probably not using it on this, right?
Sure.
I
I'm
never
all
played
about
this card.
making other people play Wraths, right? I target Seth. Seth gets the Wrath back from his graveyard. He Wraths, right? And I come out with like a free card in hand.
The fact that it has Death Touch is so sweet. I love it.
I love seeing other people play this card because there's some chance they're going to Ewit for me, but I refuse to do it. I just play the Eternal Witness.
All right,
I feel
Seth,
like
you do this. Here's your
risk.
dream scenario. You Skullwinder me. I get Secret Rendezvous. I rendezvous with you.
Oh. Okay. I'm in for that. Okay.
Look at that value. Look at that value.
And then I'll draw my Tempt with Discovery, and you can tutor up a land. I'll get another one. I think we got a little two-headed giant deck going here.
Krim, we got to band together. I'll play Coveted Jewel. You attack me for non-existent.
Yes, Krim will band together with you with his lethal vapors and bitter feud you.
Lethal vapors or Skullwinder no longer can block because it's dead. Got him.
Check this. All right, you lethal vapor. We bitter feud each other, get our health real low, then we pay. What is it? Repay in kind. There it is. There it is.
We got to do another two-headed giant. I think this is what it's brewing up to be. We got all these cool Politer cards. All right. Moving on. We got a card that so this is the jankiest card that I will bring up, but I will fight to the death that is actually good sometimes. It's
The death is certain.
All right, trust me. All right, okay. So it doesn't sound good, but trust me. All right. So this is Pulse Mage Advocate. I know you're probably looking it up, but I'll spare you by telling you exactly what it does. It's a 3-mana white cleric creature, 1/3, big stats. It has a very powerful activated ability. You can tap it and return 3 target cards in an opponent's graveyard to their hand, and you return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Not to hand, to the battlefield for no mana. No mana at all. So a no mana, repeatable tap activation reanimation for a creature, any creature in your graveyard. I run this card in my Niambi Esteemed Speaker deck, which is a Zorius Reanimator. And let me tell you, it looks like trash. It 100% looks like trash. And I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, Tomer, this is a bad card. You're tip-tapping away in the comment section saying how bad it is. Let me tell you, this is the best reanimation card. It's the best reanimation card in the deck. It's the best. I return like a Nezahal or something, some 7-mana beater. And you know what I give you instead? I'll give you like some of your fetch lands, you crack some fetches. I'll give you those, some random thing. I could even use it politically. I'll be like, hey, we have a mutual enemy. How about I'll return you the Doomblade to your hands, and then you can use it together. We were just talking about Skullwinder, how good Skullwinder is, Richard.
This universe is very weird. There's just Doomblades everywhere.
Everybody's running Doomblades and lightning bolts.
Thinking how good this is. I'm like, on
it's
one
so
hand,
good. Yo, Richard, you love Skullwinder. You gotta back me on this one. This is an all-star Niambi.
3 cards is a lot, right?
Yeah, but you choose which cards they are.
It's a secret rendezvous. You just get to reanimate something rather than drawing your part of the card.
It's a repeatable secret rendezvous.
It's your 2 favorite cards. It's Rendezvous and Skullwinder put in one.
This is like made for Richard.
So I agree with Tomer. In a dedicated reanimator deck, right? This is really good. Like whatever 3 cards you give your opponents, you're reanimating like a bomb out of your graveyard. But would you play this as a value play? Like if you're just a generic deck, is 3 cards worth a random reanimation? In that sense, no. I don't know that it is. But like you give someone 3 fetches, but like their graveyard can run low. You're gonna have to give them something good eventually. Like
but in a also in Crim in a mill deck. In a mill deck, you got your Court of Milling.
Yeah.
Esper Rogues.
You give them 3 lands, you'd be like, hey buddy, there's some land drops. Here you go, there's some land.
3 lands is a land tax activation. That's a land tax activation.
Yeah.
I can see it in like White Reanimator just because you're desperate. I mean, White does. They are. I don't even know. I don't even know if I see it in White Reanimator. There's like enough reanimation spells. Why do you have to play this one?
You would think there's a lot of reanimation spells, but let me tell you, not so much.
It is literally just Breath of Life, right? And like a few 9.
Yeah, but Breath of Life is 4 and one. It's a 1-shot. This is 3. It's a creature, so you could even reanimate the Advocate. Layers here. You reanimate this with the Sun
in a generic deck. I think it's close. I think Tomer has some valid points here. I think it actually may be good in a generic deck, so I'm gonna try it.
My biggest takeaway from the cast so far is I really don't understand why Tomer doesn't like Secret Rendezvous. Now that we've talked about all these other cards, he trashed Secret Rendezvous, but loves every other similar card.
Cheaper reanimates my Avacyn, and it's repeatable. And I get to choose which cards you get to draw,
They actually are just drawing them.
You are drawing, but it's selective draw. It's not like, you get to draw whatever you want. It's like, no, you get to draw 3 lands.
The problem is most people don't have trash in their graveyard, right? Most people,
that's why.
Unless you're self-mill or something, there's like not just random garbage in your graveyard, right? There's probably good cards you played already. So giving 3 could be dicey.
Look, this is definitely the most controversial one. Hopefully, I won some people over.
You've won me over. We will see Pulse Mage Advocate.
Don't run in generic decks. You run a Reanimator, and I'd run in an Orzhov Reanimator too. Honestly, I love this card.
Well, in Orzhov Reanimator, you have a way to like ley Line of the Void.
No, you have to return.
Oh, you have to. Oh, wow. So you can't even get around that? Oh,
No,
that card
it's not up to or anything. You can't target
just
ever.
that would be
continues
overpowered.
to plummet.
He's so overpowered you can just reanimate for free.
Look, if you're trying to play a creature from what set is this? Judgment. You gotta know, you need to know it's been power crept. Right?
What about this? Think about this. You reanimate. Okay. You're in like you're Boros or Azorius. You reanimate something. You give them the stuff back, and then you wheel. You windfall or you like wheel them. Boom. Combo right there. Easy.
And then it puts a bunch more cards in the graveyard, so you can do
And
it
then
again
you get the-
next turn. It fuels the advocate.
And then you have more stuff to reanimate, more stuff to give back, and then you build them again. You get back Magus of the Wheel. Boom, combo.
You've sold me enough to try it in Reanimator, in
Can't
White
beat.
Reanimator in specific.
The next time you played Mono White Reanimator set, remember?
Yes, I'll give it a shot.
The obvious deck,
this
there's dozens of us. All right, moving on. Krim, what do you got for us for number 4?
So number 4, I actually have a commander deck built around him, Shadrix, Silver Quill. This card is just a fun token commander. Because first off, I mean, usually I'm giving myself the 2/1, and then I'll just let somebody else draw a bunch, or like draw a card, or maybe put some 1/1 counters on somebody that has no creatures. But the thing here is, it is fun to have a commander where you can actually just, once again, at the beginning of combat, just target somebody else, give them something. It is fun. Although usually, like Seth had mentioned, you do want it to benefit you a little bit more. So oftentimes I'll just use my Shadrix to, like, get a bunch of 1/1s and give you a 2/1, right? Like, obvious, and that through that you can build alliances too. Hey, I gave you that 2/1, now go attack Richard. Go finish the job. I need your help. So Shadrix just seems like a fun Orzhov style, kind of commander. Then you also get to play like Orzhov Advocist in the deck too, which is like another way to like get extra politicky. It's super fun.
Brina.
I do think it is like the sweetest Orzhov politics commander. So I do like it. It's more of a build around for me though. I wouldn't just run it in a random Orzhov deck, but I think as far as building around it, it's kind of like Orzhov Feldegriff, or about as close as you can get to Orzhov Feldegriff.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't see this as political. I see every time Krim plays it, it's all upside for him. Like he targets himself to draw a card, targets the player with no creatures, and then it's like, what? Yes, it is a very strong card, and usually it's just all upside for you.
Usually it will be, but like I have given out 1/1 counters. Okay, I have for a favor. For a favor.
Yeah. I've always seen this card overperform whenever Shadrix is on the battlefield. But I have you don't have to use it politically. I also like that too. It's like you can use it to help people out, but you also sometimes, if somebody has no creatures, you just be like, all right, you get +1/+1 counters. Don't spend it all in one place, and you draw a card or something like that. Like that's great too. But like the fact that you can always help people out with it is also super cool. And I also love the artwork. I don't know. The aesthetics of it is really cool. And I also love the fact that it has double strike, so it like holds swords really well. I guess none of these things are political, but I just really like the card. It's really good.
The best
really
political
fun.
cards are the non-political cards that only benefit yourself, actually.
This card actually has tons of political favors, though. You can keep in your pocket whenever you need it. So that's the fun in it. The versatility is there. Obviously, yes, you can also just dunk somebody with double strike. But
it's lovely.
Which, by the way, the 1/1 counter you target yourself with, now that's a 3/6. It's got a very massive dump truck booty. It is legitimately able to block forever.
Very political of it. All right, moving on. Seth, what do you got for us? The last card. We're the final countdown.
So my last card is a 2-drop creature. Humble Defector, a red 2-drop. It's a 2/1. It's a human rogue. You can tap it to draw 2 cards, and then you gotta give it to target opponent, and they, of course, can also tap it to draw 2 cards. On their turn, you can only do it as a sorcery. So basically a red creature divination that just bounces around the table and lets everyone draw cards. I mean, I think it's like kind of the definition of a political card. I love drawing cards. You can, like Richard was talking about with Secret Rendezvous, give it to the person who's mana screwed, the person who's going to maybe harm you the least. And you can even try to work out some sort of deal where if I give it to you, will you give it back to me the next turn so that I can draw more cards and just kind of pass it back and forth and leave the arch enemy or the person that's really far ahead out of the humble defector kind of chain. So I think it's a neat card. I don't play it that often, every once in a while, but I think it's pretty fun.
It hits all the important parts. It's a human, it's a rogue, and it does.
Well, it's not blue or black.
But I play Mardu humans and I play Grixis rogues, so either horror works for me. And I love exactly like what Seth had mentioned. Oftentimes you get to there's just one person that's very far ahead. And you're able to just go, hey, you and I, let's just play a little game of ping pong here back and forth with this card. And just we pull super far ahead through that. So this is a fun card.
I feel this card's dated as well. I feel we used to see this a lot. It's currently at 3% in EDH Rec, but over the years, Wizards has printed so much red, like pseudo draw, like the Exile, like Jessica's Will, Wheel of Misfortune. Like we've loaded up on a lot of red card draw, so this has fallen out of favor a bit, but I think it's still pretty good. You can play with Arden. You can draw 2 cards and then skull clamp it with Arden to draw 2 more cards. So there's like some cute things you can do with it, but yeah, I think it's still a solid card. I think people would still play it, but I think we have so much card draw nowadays in red that people aren't as desperate, so they just want to take all the cards for themselves and not pass it around the table.
Also works really well with Homeward Path and other things that give you your permanents back, so you can just keep doing it every turn, draw 2. When it's tap draw 2 every turn, I think that's even good by 2021 standards.
This is also just Secret Rendezvous, by the way, for all you Secret Rendezvous haters.
No. Well, so I still run it in my Zedru deck. I still run it in my Zedru deck because if I give it to somebody, either they give it back to me, which is great, then I can use it again, or they don't give it back to me and I draw a card off Zedru. And also I run Homeward Path, obviously, in that deck as well, in ways to return creatures that I own but don't control back to my hand or back to my side of the battlefield a bunch of different ways. So it's like all upside for me. And I think I don't know when it was printed, but I think the moment it was printed, it went to the deck and it never came out. So it's been like
this card is hilarious. So when I grind the EDH rooms on Moto, I've seen people play this card and they're like, I'm gonna cast Humble Defector. And we're going to pass it around counterclockwise. Right? And then so we pass it around counterclockwise. And then like one guy decides to not do it. And then the whole table just murders them. Like the rest of the game, they're arch enemy, right? And I'm like, wow, okay. But yeah, so it's like, don't break the Humble Defector rule on Moto. But it's just hilarious. It's like, I'm just going to play this. We're going to pass in a circle around this way. Okay?
Did they put that in chat, or is it just like implied? Like
in chat. They type it out, right? Yeah. And then one person tries to break it, and the whole table is just like, well, he broke the rules. Gotta kill him.
That's kind of amazing. Maybe that's the true power of it. As long as like you hope that somebody breaks the rules and they're effectively dead, they just don't know yet.
Yeah,
that's amazing. All right, moving on. Richard, what's your final What's your final pick? There we go on the things.
All right, I have Scheming Symmetry. It's a single black mana, 1 mana value sorcery. Choose 2 target players. Each of them searches their library for a card, puts it on top. Shuffles the library, then puts the card on top. So sorcery speed Vampiric Tutor, where you can choose yourself and an opponent or 2 opponents. I think this is severely underrated. I'm all about the Wrath. I'm all about Seth casting the Wrath, right? Where Seth, you tutor up the Wrath because I can't tutor it up because I can't draw it this turn. It's on top of my library, but you're going next. So you tutor up the Wrath. Or if you need Krim has a super lockdown, right? You're like, okay, Seth, you get a counter spell. Tomer, you get the undo inversion, right? And then together we could destroy Krim, right? So I feel there's a lot of things you can do with this card. I feel people aren't playing it enough, and you can sneak your way out of it, right? You can put your combo win on top and then focus the direction to like Seth casting the Wrath. And if he doesn't cast the Wrath, he's the bad guy. He could tutor and he did not, right? But I can't draw my card now. It's all on Seth. So blame Seth for everything, right? So I just love how this card plays.
I full agree with Richard. I full agree with Richard.
I gotta stop casting Wrath for Richard.
You gotta stop casting Wrath when I ask you to.
This is like a peek into the mind of Richard, and I'm like scared.
It is true though, right? Like, because then you don't get to draw the card immediately, so you just kind of force the person to like then use their turn to kind of do it. Like, I love this card. This was actually going to be on my list, but then I saw that you had it, so I didn't want to make it the thing. But the main thing I also love about this card is that you can also force someone to actually.
I knew this was happening. Opposition agents just got better.
No, like there's a way to force the table to kill them, right? Like I remember the one game where Phil and I was like, yo, Phil, I'm gonna let Seth tutor, and if he untaps, we lose the game.
Oh yeah. I remember that.
So you better kill him.
It was the bold move where he forced the kill on Seth.
I think I talked my way out of it though by getting a land or something. I'm pretty sure I convinced Phil that I would tutor up something bad enough to not kill me. But that was a pretty sneaky line. I will give you that.
Like it also. Yeah. Go ahead.
Also, a way to make people shuffle, which like Obnixilis cares about your opponent like searching their library, and then they got to take damage. So there's some other additional shenanigans with certain commanders, or you can be a mill commander and like mill away the card that they put on top, and then you get a Vampiric Tutor without paying Vampiric Tutor prices. So I like this card too. I don't really play it, but I do like it.
Or you let them tutor their best card, and then you hit them with something that exiles off the top, like a Night Veil Spectre.
Yeah, this is the Crim specialty. Like he has it is like you put this in a rogue deck or something. Like there's so many ways to break the symmetry. You mill it, you exile it, you control their tutoring, so you just get it with opposition agent. But I didn't think about it the way where like you're not running it with any ways to break it, and you just use it deviously to force your opponents to work. Manipulate them behind the scenes. Like that is stone cold evil, and I love it. This card went up in my book just after that conversation, I think. Yeah. All right. My last card. This is a Seth's specialty. This is, I think, one of Seth's favorite cards ever. This is Arcane Denial. This is one of my favorite. It was a card that I did not like initially. But I've since made it's now one of my favorite counters in the format.
You've seen the light.
It's two. It's an instant 2 mana, 1 and a blue to counter target spell, any spell, and then that caster the spell's owner can draw 2 cards at the beginning of the next upkeep, and you get to draw a card at the beginning of the next upkeep. So effectively, you're down a card. Compared to your opponents. Your opponent gets to draw 2, you get to draw 1, and you both did 1 for 1. So they're up 1, you're down nothing, you're down nothing, they're up 1, and everybody else is not up anything. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's also like the least mean or like the least feel bad counterspell, because a lot of people don't like being countered in Magic the Gathering. There's just like a stigma against it. It just feels bad to have your spell countered. But people do not respond as poorly when you Arcane Denial them, because they get to draw 2 cards afterwards too. So yeah, they lost the spell they actually cared about, and the one you cared about, because not all cards are equal. Obviously, you dealt with the threat, but your opponent's not as mad at you, which I think is a really nice middle ground. So
it's the patting on the back, like, hey bud, here you go, have 2 cards, even though I just countered your win con.
And it's a counter spell, but it's also easier to cast because it's not double blue. It's 1 generic and a blue. So it's also easier to splash, easier to cast, and just any mana base. So I think this card is like awesome.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is a tough sell as a political card. Like with Skullwinder, I can understand, like, okay, like you're giving me something, maybe I'll do you a favor. Or with Secret Rendezvous, oh, you drew me 3 cards, I'm in your debt for the rest of the game. Is this really gonna work? Like, I counter your bomb, in next turn you get to draw a couple cards, so you owe me. Like, that doesn't. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can
your
buy
Sun
that
Titan with 2 planes. Are we cool?
Okay. I'll spin it a different way. Let's say there's an arch enemy at the table, and Seth, you're like, I don't have any answers, but I have a lot of board wipes in my deck, and I have like this crappy, I don't know, I'm running Hedron Archive, which is a garbage card. I'll cast Hedron Archive, and then I'll counter it with the Arcane Denial. Boom, you get to draw 2 cards. Boom.
I like Tomer just admitted that Hedron Archive is good because Hedron Archive is 6 mana to draw 2 cards.
No.
This is also 6 mana to draw 2 cards.
But this is actually a good card, whereas Hedron Archive shouldn't be in your deck.
Gets the cards right away. This is like you gotta go to the next.
All right, what if it's like a Wayfarer's Bauble? You paid 1 mana to cast it.
If I knew you were always going to be countering my worst cards, then yes, that would actually win you some points.
If you cast Hedron Archive, I'm going to counter it just to send a message.
I mean, from a more spiky perspective, I don't want my counters to draw you cards. I don't want to put you up a card when I counter your spell. I get it if you're playing like a CDH combo deck or something.
It's a remand. It's a remand. It's better than remand, right? It
gets rid of the threat. It's gone.
Yeah, it's like it's a temple play. It's like, I don't know, like memory lapse maybe? I don't know what it's like.
I think it's better than memory lapse because they aren't going to draw it again.
You're getting rid of the threat, right? So you're countering their Emergent Ultimatum, and then they get like planes, something crappy. But right? If they get like Skullwinder, then yeah, you're screwed, right? But most of the time, you're getting rid of their threat. So I think it is a good card, but I agree with Seth. It's not political, really. Like, I guess you can, like, really, but who's going to do this, right? Like, you're so desperate that you're casting a Bauble to Arcane Denial to draw 2 cards to cast at instant speed to somehow save yourselves. Like, it's a little deep there.
Well, you want me to replace it? I'll replace it if you want me to swap it out.
Tomer, I love that card so much, but I also don't know how that's political.
Fine. You know what? We're replacing it. Boom. I'm taking it out. I'm putting in Council's Judgment. It's it's 3 mana sorcery. All right, this was also on the list. It just got cut, but I thought maybe we could talk about Arcane now, but it's fine. 3 mana sorcery, white, 1 white sorcery. Will of the Council, starting with you. Each player votes for a non-land permanent you don't control. Exile each permanent with the most votes or tied for the most votes. So you choose a target, and all your opponents get to choose a vote on a target as well. What this is going to happen is it's either going to basically remove one thing, it's going to exile one thing, but sometimes you can kind of shift the vote, shift the public opinion to take out 2 things. You'll be like, hey, I know I'm exiling one of your things, buddy, but you can get even with the other guy who's also a mutual enemy of ours. If we both vote for blah, blah, and you get 2 things. But
not political enough. Next, what's next on the list? No, actually, I really like Council's Judgment. It's a card that I've played quite a bit. I think it's a really fun way to have a removal spell. And you're right, sometimes you get 2 things out of it. And I like cards that make the table interact. And this usually leads to a pretty interesting conversation from the table about like, oh, if we do it this way, we can get rid of this things. And it ends up being hopefully mutually beneficial for most of the table and takes the arch enemy down a peg or 2. So I like this card a lot.
Oh, yeah. This is also a card that's fallen out of favor. It's only 2%, but I actually think it should be played. So it's 3 mana removal, but it removes anything and everything, like Hexproof, Shroud, whatever, right? Gets rid of all that because you can vote for that, right? So I think we should play it more. I don't know why we don't play it as much.
Because once again, like a lot of the newer cards that are printed, you just straight up answer the permanent, right? As opposed
I think I'd rather just undo inversion or outer. Yeah. Forget this, right? Like I'll just wipe the whole board if it's so problematic, right?
I think that's Generous Gift. I think Generous Gift was the nail in the coffin there. Because Generous Gift is also 3 mana. It also deals with any permanent. It doesn't exile it, but it's instant speed.
Is it newer?
So
is Generous Gift actually?
Generous Gift is newer, yeah.
Maybe that's what happened. I always play Generous Gift. But then there's always that stupid indestructible or hexproof thing that you can't get rid of, right?
Yeah. And this one's still 2 for 1. I mean, it's still good, but like being sorcery, I think, is what hurts the most. But I still like it. But anyway, that was my final pick because you didn't like Arcane Denial. It's fine. We'll move on to Krim. Round it out for us. What's the final card, the final list?
And just in like my typical fashion, the last card has to be a rogue. But it is Vargoth. The one from Kaldheim. I don't know his full name. I should actually look up his full name. Bloodsky Sire. There it is. So for those that don't know Varigoth Bloodsky Sire, he has Death Touch. He's a 2/3 for 3 mana, 2 and a black. Boast 2 mana. Target player searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library and puts that card on top of it. Now, you may think that, yes, everybody knows the opposition agent line here. Yes, I can do that, or if I have it. But though I have used this quite a fair amount, as much like how Richard would use like scheming symmetry, in that, hey, we need to sweep the board, or does anybody have a Bane of Progress or something like that? So I'll attack, and I get to sneak in a little bit of damage here, and like let me attack, and then I'll let you tutor up something, and then so I kind of use scheming symmetry, Varigoth. I love lots of tools like that where I'm able to also like help my opponent's tutor. As weird as it sounds, because usually I can abuse it in some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like that's pretty much what I like doing with Varigoth. And then on top of that, like it's a rogue and a demon, so it's a 2-for-1 for me, and I love this card. Other than that.
That's pretty sweet. I actually didn't realize until right now that this actually could target any player. That actually makes it much more interesting for Commander, because you can do those very sneaky Richard shenanigans of making me tutor up a Wrath apparently and spend my turn casting it.
Now that you know, are you going to be so eager?
No, I'm done being Richard's lackey, casting all Richard Wrath. Cast your own Wrath, Richard. Cast your own Wrath for once.
Is the end of me. How am I gonna play now? Am I gonna play my own Wraths? What is this?
Now I'm gonna attack and target you, Richard, and make it. Hey, you go get the Wrath.
I don't have Wraths in my deck. Sorry, I'm a deck.
Also slightly off topic. I just want the Commander Clash crew to know. We were watching the stream. We pop in for the premieres of Commander Clash. Richard mentioned very briefly at the intro before we had to go to this recording. He's like, I hope maybe one day I'll throw the game or something so I can finally say Clash on. So he was humble bragging that he never gets knocked out first, so he never gets to say Clash on. The hubris. The audacity.
Tomer, I'm supporting you in your Clash on initiative. How can you call me out like that?
I'm just saying, he can't keep getting away with it. He can't.
You want this weak sauce Clash on from Krim or Seth, or you want a good quality Clash on from
which, by the way, I had to have a quick touch up on that too, Tomer. I had you, I step out, you fill in, you get rehired, and you die first. So I have to say Clash on again the next week. What?
It's an honor.
Yeah, I think Tomer threw the game on purpose. But yeah, go ahead.
I think your card's really good. I think I'm gonna auto include in every black deck now. I've seen like Phil played it recently, and we're like, oh, you can actually tutor for other people. I really value Death Touch, like the 3 mana 2/3 Death Touch. Pretty much ensures that it's going to attack through. Like people won't block it because they don't want to trade with it, but it gives you a body to block with. And I'm a big believer in having any small bump to stop people from attacking you. Like you got Curse of Opulence, I have a 2/3 Death Touch. You sure you want to send your creature in? I'll block, right? So that and the versatility to tutor for yourself or someone else, I think this should be auto include. And you can also sack the body if you have like sack synergies. You're in black. Can reanimate. You can do all kinds of things with this thing. So I actually really like it. So I think all my black decks are just like totally auto-filled. Like I have like 99 staples to put in every single black deck now. All decks start with like Scheming Symmetry, Varigoth, Coveted Jewel, Dousing Dagger. Like the deck is already full. I don't know what to do anymore.
Opposition
all these
agent.
political cards.
Opposition agent.
Opposition agent.
I'm not as high on it because it's still like it's a 3 mana down payment. Then Boast requires you to attack first. So 3 mana, then you have to attack, then you have to pay another 2 mana to tutor, and it doesn't go through your hand, it goes to the top of the library. So it's like a lot of extra steps. And also, I don't know what Richard's saying, but like if I have a creature that is not like absolutely necessary, I will trade with this Varigoth because I don't want you tutoring every single turn. I feel like if it has evasion and if it has haste, like it gets super good. Because it's like it's a repeatable tutor, and it's on a creature. Like most tutors are not on creatures, and especially not like as versatile as this. Like we have Sidisi, and I don't even know what else, honestly. But
you know all those games, Tomer, where you're like at 3 mana, you have nothing to do, and you're like, I'm gonna tutor, but I have no idea what I'm tutoring because like the game hasn't developed enough. Like, this is the perfect play, right? You have a blocker. You can tutor when you decide to tutor later.
That's true.
Right? You don't need to tutor up something random that you don't know what you're doing yet, right? So it's like a slow play. It's not like if you're playing Storm, you're not playing Varragoth, right? You're going to play your real tutors. But for like a generic deck, it's like a slow play tutor.
I also love like you can Sun Titan up a tutor. It's just so cool. like it dies, whatever, and then you're like, oh, I need to tutor again. Sun Titan or whatever, Seven's Reclamation. Varragoth, go. Yeah. I like it. It's a really cool deck or a card. Yeah. All right. Well, somehow, some way, we actually managed to squeeze in all of our picks, all the cards we wanted to talk about in the span of an hour and a half, which is kind of a record for us. So job well done, everybody. And yeah, hope you enjoyed our lists. Let us know, obviously, in the comment section below what your favorite political cards are and what you think about the cards that we picked and discussed here. Do you think they're good? Do you think they're bad? Unless it's like False Mage Advocate, I will not stand for any heresy about that. That card is a gem.
All right, let us know what you think about Arcane Denial as a political powerhouse.
Anyway, so that's our show, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. And as always, if you want to support the show, please be sure to like and subscribe. It always really, really helps us out. And the vast majority of you are not subscribing and not clicking that little button, the little thumbs up button. So if you could do that, that would be great. And then if you also want to buy stuff like Richard's Wall, the playmats on Richard's Wall, mtgmerch.com, you can buy all those playmats and more. From Richard's Garage straight to you. And that's it for us, everybody. Hope you enjoyed, and until next time, friends, see ya!